Big time. So let's see. Keep refreshing. How's everything over there in the Shy?
Good, man. Good, man. Yep, everything is good. No complaints here.
Same old stuff? Cool.
Yeah.
Me too. All right, man. Here is the pause. Welcome to another episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm your host, Derek Tate, alongside Jay Pfeiffer. Jay, how's it going over there in Chicago? We got a bunch of stuff to talk about, the normal here on the Go Route.
Yeah, everything's good here in Chicago, man. It's feeling like fall. We got a little snow in the air and stuff like that, but let's get into this football discussion, man. We got a lot to get into this week.
That we do. So, top takeaways. So, we got top takeaways, game balls, MVP watch. We can actually hand out our game ball for most valuable player through the midway point of the NFL season if you want to go ahead and officially crown someone.
Sure.
And of course, we got our power rankings and then the preview heading into week 10 of NFL action. But some of my top takeaways, it's maybe two games or two teams I want to discuss. The Cleveland Browns and the Chicago Bears.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who's worse. Is it the head coach in both situations? Is it Freddie Kitchens and Matt Nagy just being completely incompetent? Or is it the quarterback play that we got to really start taking and examining and taking a deeper, longer look at with Baker Mayfield and Mitchell Trubisky, respectively? I mean, if we're taking a look at these two teams, what is your take on the situation for both?
Well, both two teams that we've loved to talk about so far here on the Go Route this year, Tater, Cleveland and the Chicago Bears. Of course, the Chicago Bears, in my opinion, are probably the most disappointing team in the league up to this point. Given the season that they came off of, 12-4. Of course, we know how the playoffs ended with the loss to the Philadelphia Eagles at home last year in the divisional round. Tons of expectations coming into this year. You expected with a third-year quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky, another year of growth in Matt Nagy's system, the system that we all thought was supposed to set the league on fire and change the game, to use some air quotes there, Tater. Again, the Bears are completely the most disappointing team, at least in my opinion, in the entire league at this point. Of course, they're coming off another loss on the road in Philadelphia, a place where they historically don't play well. So I was telling you this last week that I didn't feel good about this game at all. I know you were trying to give me a little bit of optimism, something to look forward to on Sunday. But I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, Tater.
You think?
10 yards in first half, man. 10 yards in the first half out of your entire offense. I'm pretty sure I could have put on pads and went out there and got 10 yards from scrimmage my damn self, even in my current state, not being in prime physical condition. I mean, we're running out of negatives and excuses to talk about this team. You can say it's the quarterback, and sure, Mitchell Trubisky deserves a ton of blame for his play. He is completely void of confidence at this point, Tater. I know that's something that we've talked about in the past few weeks. I know you see it. Pretty much everybody with any sort of football acumen can see that Mitchell Trubisky is pretty much a deer in headlights. Every time he drops back to pass, he can only focus on one read. And when that read doesn't pan out, he starts to punt the ball. His feet get happy. He loses all fundamentals of quarterbacking, and it becomes a disaster right before your eyes. So as a Bears fan, as a football fan, you can say, well, of course, the quarterback deserves a lot of blame for that, right? But again, I think in these type of situations, and we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns too, I won't spend too much time on the Bears, but I think in both of these situations, I think it's well, I had my doubts about Freddie Kitchens before the season started.
Right. But most sane people did.
Right. But in the case of Matt Nagy, again, coming off a 12-4 season, you figure, okay, well, maybe this guy is the quarterback whisperer. Maybe this guy has unlocked something in Mitchell Trubisky and gotten him to his peak performance. And the regression here is unlike anything I've seen in recent memory, Tater. I mean, nobody mistaking Mitchell Trubisky for the second coming of John Elway, right? I mean, but there were things that you saw, given his performances last year, things that, again, as Bears and football fans, we all thought that Nagy would be able to build on, the offense would be able to build on, and the thing would take off. And it just hasn't happened that way. Again, 10 yards in the first half. I'm not even sure why he was brought out in the second half, to be completely honest with you. I wanted to text you this at the time, but I was working. I couldn't see the game, but of course I kept up with the updates, and I wanted to text you at the time. I'm like, at this point, I think you have to move on from Mitchell Trubisky. I know you've been campaigning for Chase Daniel for a couple of weeks now,
right?
And especially last week, I don't see why Trubisky was brought out in the second half. I mean, there's no confidence in him. I just said that a few minutes ago. The offense is stagnant. You can see the frustration. You can start to see the frustration on the other guys' faces, right? I mean, you can see the frustration on an Anthony Miller who gets missed on another ball. You can see the frustration on Anthony Robinson who was missed on a deep ball for a touchdown where he got behind his defender. You're starting to see the frustration from these guys, and I wonder, from my opinion, whether it's a complete revolt in the locker room. But enough from me from the Bears. I know you've got stuff to say about it too, and we can
absolutely. I'm ready to jump in. I mean, the water's warm at this point. You set the table beautifully. I mean, you already turned on the jacuzzi. I'm jumping in, and let's dive in and take a closer look at the Chicago Bears and Mitchell Trubisky. Look, the first three possessions, netted -2 yards.
Yeah.
-2 yards on 3 possessions of the football. Then you look at that's the lowest yardage total. You mentioned it, 10 yards through the first 2 quarters of play. That's the lowest first half yardage total in over 40 years, 4 decades. That's inexcusable. I mean, at this point, I don't know what you're holding on to in expecting or hoping, because you're just hoping beyond hope at this point. And the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same exact thing and expect a different result.
Exactly.
We have seen, and we now have enough tape to definitively say that Mitchell Trubisky is not a good quarterback.
Right.
It honestly, and you say a regression that it's hard in recent memory to even come up with one so mind-blowing. The only one that can kind of come to mind for me is, I think in 2015, Blake Bortles threw 35 touchdown passes, and the next year he regressed way back to the mean. But really, that's the only thing I can think of, or only player I can think of, where you felt like there was some upside with a player, and then all of a sudden, in one season, you are quickly reminded that this guy is nowhere near a franchise quarterback, much less even a starter at the NFL level.
Yeah, and it's something that you come to, love and hate about the league, right? It's that 1 year to the next year transition, and again, it's really something that again, it's not only disappointing as just a personal Bears fan, but again, it just makes you wonder what is actually going on behind the scenes. Because you picked a name out, Blake Bortles. I mean, that was on a run to an AFC conference championship game for Blake Bortles in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then like you said, the next year just can't seem to get over the hump and transition from 1 year to the next. Great comp there, and listen, at this point, Trubisky's not even Blake Bortles. I mean, let's just put it like that.
No.
I mean, again, like you said, Blake Bortles threw 35 touchdowns. I mean, Trubisky's nowhere near that at this point.
No, I mean, we saw enough things in year number 2, your first year with Matt Nagy in 2018, that we all expected, at least definitely most Bears fans, to at least that same level of competency, which made you feel like they were a legitimate threat and they were a double doink away from advancing to the divisional round of the playoffs. And who knows what could have happened, what it could have, should have. That seems like a distant memory at this point.
Yeah.
That seems like it was almost 5 years ago, even though it was just this past January is when it happened. But I want to switch gears now to the Cleveland Browns and Freddie Kitchens. I mean, this team is 2-6. And if you look, I mean, I know that games are not won on paper, but when you looked at this roster heading into this upcoming season in 2019, there was not very many people that wouldn't say that looks like a roster that can compete in the AFC, especially when you saw the fact that Baker Mayfield threw 27 touchdown passes as a rookie, and you add Odell Beckham Jr. And it's just Baker, speaking of regression, Baker has significantly regressed. It seems like his leadership is non-existent. I mean, a guy that had so much swag, so much promise, and someone that I actually enjoyed watching play his rookie year, and even at Oklahoma, because he did have something. I thought he had some sort of special moxie that just kind of rallied the troops around him.
Right.
But you went and got him a premier wide receiver. And some of this is on Freddie Kitchens because the guy you kept him around because he called plays for half a season,
right,
and you promoted him to head coach unjustly.
Yeah. Unprovenly at that.
They're not even using Odell Beckham Jr. the way that you should, but there's also parts of it where I tell you what, man, on the last play that really sealed the fate of the Cleveland Browns in their loss to the Broncos, it was 4th down, and I think it was 4th and 4, and the play was called for Jarvis Landry, but his first read, instead of looking to Odell Beckham Jr., by the way, who torched Chris Harris along the left rail, and if he puts the ball, drops it in the bucket, that's a touchdown, and it's a go-ahead score. Instead, he looks for his running back coming out of the backfield as his first read and then goes to Jarvis. He never even takes a look at Odell Beckham Jr. That's on Baker.
Yep, agreed. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I mean, I agree. Play some music because it's bad for the Browns, man.
No, seriously, yeah, no, but I think when we talk about both of these teams, right, big disappointments. So let's get into the Cleveland Browns just like you were doing. To me personally, I think this is a case of the league showing you you're not as good as you think you are. And I loved Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma. I think you touched on a good point when you talked about his leadership and trying to get the troops to rally around him, right? I think that's something he did well in Oklahoma, short time in Oklahoma, but I think it's something that he did well. He was a guy that, with his personality, with his swag, with his moxie, you had, the Sooners and that team sort of take on that attitude, right? That leadership part of him. But I think coming off of last year, I think the success got into his head, even though it was minimal success. It wasn't like it transferred into a playoff appearance or anything like that. But I think with a personality as such as Baker Mayfield's, if you're a guy that has a little bit of success, has a little bit of momentum, I think in his case, what he thinks is that he can just keep it going and he can go in the next year, have that same attitude and not put in, at least from an outside perspective, the necessary work to continue to be successful in this league. So what do the Browns do, right? They have a great team on paper. They have Nick Chubb. They have Myles Garrett on defense leading. They go out and get Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. in the offseason via a trade, right? And everybody's jumping on the Cleveland Browns bandwagon. Oh, the Browns are going to be the AFC North champs. They're going to be a wild card. They're going to do some things. They're going to surprise a lot of people coming off of last season. And again, this is why I am so jealous of teams like the Patriots, right? Because it is a game-to-game, year-to-year process with a team like that. They do not rest on laurels from the previous play, let alone the previous game or the previous year. It is next play, next game, next year up, different identity. What do we do this play, this game, this year to be successful? And with all of those personalities in Cleveland, something that we all had our eyes on, Freddie Kitchens has shown he has not been able to use those guys the way that they're supposed to be used. Listen, and now they've got Kareem Hunt back, and of course he has a first game back. I mean, it wasn't a great game, nothing to write home about and say he lit the world on fire. He absolutely didn't in Denver. But when it comes to these personalities, the talent on the team, I think what you're starting to see is that a guy like Freddie Kitchens, who's unproven, who again is a guy that, like you said, Tater, got the gig basically for calling plays for a quarter to a half a season. They should have stuck with Greg Williams. Don't know why they didn't. And again, I think what you're seeing is that fruit come to bear. And again, when you're talking about coaches like Freddie Kitchens and Matt Nagy, you just wonder if they're in over their head at this point. And I think that they both are.
Oh, it's 100%. And I wouldn't be I mean, maybe not Matt Nagy because he did have some success in his first season, right? So It's hard to overlook that. He did turn around a franchise that, was no one really expected to compete on any sort of level and got him to the playoffs last year. And he did get Mitchell Trubisky. Although it may have been fool's gold, he made him look like a competent NFL quarterback for a short amount of time. But when it comes to Freddie Kitchens, you're talking about a brash young quarterback that has a huge personality and an ego to go along with that. And right now, his mouth is writing checks his body can't cash.
Absolutely.
And when I'm looking at Freddie Kitchens, certainly there are plenty of things that I can nitpick as far as, his in-game decisions. But as a culture overall, I don't know if you noticed, Jermaine Whitehead was called out. The safety was called out for a piss-poor effort to try to tackle Noah Fant, who took off for like a 70-yard touchdown catch and run.
Yeah.
And then just on Twitter, just anybody that was coming at him, he was just off the cusp, going right back at him. To me, that speaks to culture, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do not have any control of you don't have a finger on the pulse of your team. Right. And they have no respect for you if they're going to go ahead and just say, to hell with that. I'm just going to fly off the handle. I'm going at anybody that comes at me. We're not staying together. I'm not listening to what my coach has to say. That comes from culture. And that starts with not only the head coach, definitely the head coach, but also the leader, the so-called leader, quarterback in Baker Mayfield.
Well, he's not setting a great example. We talked about we talked about this last week with him walking out of the press conference. When he's getting grilled a little bit by a local reporter there out in Cleveland. And again, what they call it in football terms is a lack of institutional control, right? In college sports, that's the term they use. And that is definitely what you're seeing in the case of the Cleveland Browns. It starts with the head coach, but of course, if your quarterback is not setting the example, especially off the field, what do you expect? Excuse me, Jermaine Whitehead. I mean, are you kidding me? What a knucklehead. And then you want to, he's basically, telling everybody what gang he's affiliated with and all of the stuff that he's using on Twitter.
Wild stuff, man.
The account was suspended before he even left the locker room, Tater. I mean, that is a microcosm of just what the Cleveland Browns are about this season. And again, it comes from lack of control from your head coach. And I know Mike Penn, who's
saying he had a broken hand, but you know what? That's no excuse.
Yeah, agreed. No excuse there. If you can't make tackles, then they shouldn't have put him out on the field. That's a piss poor effort, like you said. Love that term by Jermaine Whitehead. And again, it looked like he quit on most of those plays that he was getting burned on anyway. So when you talk about a lack of effort on the field and then lack of control off of it, again, that's got to point directly at your head coach.
I wouldn't be surprised if Freddie Kitchens doesn't finish the season as the head coach. I actually may expect him to get fired because right now, think about it, they do have a pretty cupcake schedule on paper. I know they got the Bills this upcoming week, and they're a good football team.
Right.
But I mean, outside of the Bills, the schedule does soften up a little bit. So if they want to try to make a run, and the voice of Freddie Kitchens is just on deaf ears over in Cleveland, then maybe a change at the top just to shake it up. Maybe what the doctor ordered, but I don't think he's going to get fired. I think they would have done it already if they were going to do it this week. So I think they're going to roll with Freddie Kitchens another week, and they're going against another very good defense. At least, the Bills defense, their secondary, they get into people. Yeah. Another top takeaway of mine, though, speaking of the AFC East, the New England Patriots lost their first game of the season on Sunday Night Football, national television, to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I think it was 37-20 was the final. And that score, actually, it could have been a lot worse because the Ravens jumped out 17-0. And the Patriots actually got lucky with a muffed punt return that led to an easy score. So that one could have gotten out of hand real quick. But give me some of your thoughts about, are the Ravens really a team that is a super contender in the AFC? Or are the Patriots just simply not as good as we all thought they were with that 8-0 start?
Yeah, no, I am fully in on both of these teams. So and I'll explain to you why, Derek. Fully expected the New England Patriots to lose this game at Baltimore. Another place where I talk about that the Bears don't play well in Philadelphia. Historically, the Patriots have not played well in Baltimore since the team has been there the past 15 years or so. Fully expected them to lose that game on Sunday night. I think the game was more about what the Ravens are as opposed to what the Patriots aren't, if that makes any sense, right? I think the Patriots are still one of the better teams in the AFC.
Oh, 100%.
I think these two teams are probably destined for a rematch in the AFC. It'll be interesting to see how the playoff picture shapes up in the second half, barring any type of collapse from the Ravens, which I don't see happening. But Lamar Jackson once again proves that he can do it with both his arms and his legs. And I think Lamar Jackson's legs are the difference maker. They're going to be, as far as the Ravens go, they're going to rest on Lamar Jackson's legs rather than his arms, because every time that there was a little bit of pressure from that vaunted Patriots rush, let's make no doubt about it, the Patriots have a great pass rush this year. It's one of the reasons why they're one of the top defenses, the top defense in the league, actually. They get to the quarterback, and Lamar Jackson each time was able to either buy a little bit of time with his legs or run out for a scramble for a few yards to keep drives going. And like you said, Tater, they were able to jump out to that 17-0 lead. Very very early in the game as I try to destroy my computer here. Jumped out to that early lead. Did Baltimore, and I don't want to say cruise to a victory, right? But again, when you jump out to 17-0 so early, it's kind of they didn't take their foot off the pedal per se, but again, it made things that much easier because I think if it was a tight game, I think it may have been something that the Patriots would have pulled out. What was your take on the game, though?
Well, I mean, you think about it, though. You take a look at how this game started off, and really what the theme was consistently throughout it was, look, the Baltimore Ravens came out and just punched the New England Patriots right in the mouth. And what was so confusing about it was, what you want to take away is normally Bill Belichick is renowned for taking away the opposing team's number one option, right? Like, if this is what your go-to is, I'm going to make you beat me doing something else. Yep. And you know what? Bill Belichick will live with that if you can beat him outside of your number one option. But that wasn't the case. They ran that ball right downhill to start the game. Absolutely. Mark Ingram just chunking this defense right up the middle. Yep. And they established the game on the ground out the gate, out the jump. But what I was really impressed with, I mean, because New England did get back in this game. It was 17-13 at halftime. Yep. And they did slow down the Ravens offense a little bit in the second quarter. But what I was really impressed with was on a fourth down, and this was really the drive that kind of salted away the win for the Ravens. I think it was a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football, we saw the New England Patriots dial up that zero blitz time and time again against Sam Darnold and the New York Jets. And Darnold couldn't figure it out. And quote unquote, he saw ghosts for pretty much the entirety of that game. They did the same thing to Lamar Jackson, cool, confident, collected. On a fourth down, he found Willie Snead, and he burned him on the blitz and moved the chains on fourth down.
Impressive.
But a couple plays later, on second and goal, they decided to go ahead and drop everybody back. It was a zone look. And Lamar, something that I did not see his rookie year, and this is why he's gotten exponentially better, is because the man sits in the pocket and is willing to go through his progressions. 1, 2, 3, ball on time to Nick Boyle, touchdown, done. That was the game. Yep. And Lamar Jackson is going to be a problem for anybody that runs into the Baltimore Ravens in the postseason, because regardless, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers have actually done a fantastic job getting back to 500, and they may be able to make a push to at least get into the wild card in the AFC. But make no mistake about it, I think the Ravens are going to run away with this division.
Yeah, agreed. I really don't see anybody challenging them at this point. Like you just mentioned, an excellent job by another coach that was sort of under fire, Mike Tomlin out in Pittsburgh. I mean, I think what he's doing at this point in the season, getting the Steelers back into contention is something to be commended. But I cannot agree with you more, Tater. Lamar Jackson, I mean, I've got quarterback envy. I mean, here in Chicago, I really do.
Absolutely.
It's something to watch. I wasn't able to watch the whole game on Sunday night, but again, I got to catch the replays and got to see some of the key plays of the game. And that touchdown late in that game to Boyle, I mean, I just a thing of beauty. You saw exactly what you want from your quarterback in that situation. Drop back, right to left, left to right. But you get my point.
No. I mean, it's something that you wish Mitchell Trubisky would do.
Because
one's not there. His eyes go to option number 2, right in the middle of the field, and then it progresses to option 3. He sees it. He throws it. There's no hesitation. He trusts what he sees, and he lets it rip. So, I mean, Lamar, you say the legs are what's going to make – certainly the legs are what creates issues for opposing defensive coordinators across the league, but the fact that his arm has developed into something that is a legitimate weapon is what makes me think that the Ravens – are Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they can make the playoffs. They proved that last year just with Lamar running the football. What can make them and push them over the top is if Lamar continues to be able to dissect defenses through the air. Hell of a performance from Lamar Jackson.
And one more thing about these Ravens is that they found their running game, and something that was hit and miss last season on their way to a playoff berth. Now that they have a solid running game, Mark Ingram got to hold on to the ball now. Cost me some points there in fantasy. I mean, I can't stress that enough. But 15 rushes, I believe, for Ingram, 115 yards. I mean, you had mentioned it earlier when we were talking about this game. Establishing that running game early and often, being physical up front, and you said it. Not only is Lamar Jackson putting the AFC on notice for a possible Super Bowl berth and a playoff run, but their entire offense is humming on all cylinders at this point in time.
Yeah, so, I mean, Lamar Jackson, we're going to have to keep an eye on them. They're probably going to reappear in our power rankings a little bit later, at least for me on my side. But speaking of quality performances, we got our game balls to hand out. Yeah. So, for week number 9, who are you handing out a game ball to?
Yeah, a couple of familiar faces here, and one name that I'm definitely probably going to throw you for a loop for, but I will explain. I'm going to start with Harrison Butker, kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He hits a 54-yarder late to tie the game against the Vikings, and of course, as time expired, hits the 44-yarder to win it for the Chiefs. Now, listen, you say I'm giving a game ball to a kicker, right?
Yeah, you're giving a game ball to a kicker, man. I mean, in fact, you're giving to one. I mean, I get it.
I have kicker envy. I have kicker and quarterback envy here in Chicagoland, Tater. You have to understand what we're going through here.
Fair enough.
But no, seriously. More importantly, I think this was just a really good win for the Chiefs. A game that they could have let go themselves. The Vikings played them really tough on the road. I didn't expect the game to be so good and so closely contested. But Harrison Butker, I mean, he's pretty good. He's one of the best in the league. But some clutch kicks late in the game, one to tie it and another one to win it. Again, it's a little bit off the cuff, but I'm giving one of my game balls to Harrison Butker.
No, I like it. I mean, Butker's a one-legged man in a Butker kicking contest. I mean, dude was able to. That's a huge win, though. I mean, think about it. You got Matt Moore, and look at the schedule that Matt Moore's had to start the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
The Packers and the Vikings, 2 teams that are among the top 10 teams in the NFL and pretty much a lot of categories, much less power rankings wise. So I mean, to come away with a victory, to eke it out.
Right.
One thing I want to take a look at, Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, he's making what, $30 million a year. He did. I mean, late in the game, he had the ball with an opportunity to get his team into field goal range. He came up short.
Yep.
And on the other side, Matt Moore was able to come up with enough plays to give Butker a chance. And lo and behold, he comes through. So, I mean, I got to tip my hat to the Kansas City Chiefs, but definitely Butker coming through in the clutch. I like that. And speaking of coming through in the clutch, at the behest of my Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, buddy.
Russell Wilson torched the Bucs secondary again and again and again all day long. The Bucs had no answer for Russell Wilson. I mean, they even got JPP back, and they still had, I mean, bring in the house, Todd Bowles, dialing up blitzes. Didn't matter.
Nope.
I mean, Russell did Russell things, and Russell's having an MVP campaign. We're going to get to that in a second, probably. But Russell, 5 touchdown passes, the game winner in overtime to Jake Hollister. He likes to shop in the Hollister in the end zone. I mean, what can you say, man? It's just Russell Wilson doing Russell Wilson things, and they're 7-2. Strictly, I think, because of him.
No, absolutely because of him. It's definitely not because of their defense. It's
hell no
concern for me out in Seattle. Listen, I know that Chris Godwin and Mike Evans there are one of the best wide receiving duos in the league. They're going to torch a lot of defenses and a lot of secondaries. But again, it comes with just a bit of a caveat for the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, Russell Wilson is one of my game balls as well, 5 TDs, and again, the game winning OT.
I mean, how can you not?
I mean, he's doing it all for them. Probably going to talk about him more in our MVP watch coming up here in a few minutes for sure. But again, that is a little bit of concern for me is that Seattle defense, because that Tampa Bay offense, I mean, they were going up and down the field a little bit too. If your Bucks, Tater, can just shore up that secondary, I mean, they might be challenging for a wild card spot at this point in time.
They would have.
Most of these games they've been in. You know, I mean,
absolutely.
For one reason or another, the Tampa Bay Bucks can't either have that one defensive drive to stop a team or that one offensive drive to win a game.
It's Winston. It's Winston that just seems to come up short in moments like this. I mean, and Winston played a good game on Sunday. He was not the reason they lost the football game.
No,
absolutely not. I thought he played one of his better games of the season. So I can't. I mean, I can certainly dissect, and there are some moments. I mean, hell, one of the touchdown passes he threw was one that got just deflected, threw it into all kinds of traffic in the red zone. Almost could have taken points off the board very easily, but the ball bounced the Bucs' way right into the lap of Brashad Perriman. So, I mean, it worked out in that circumstance, but again, it was a risky throw. But for the most part, I thought Winston played a pretty good game. But you hit the nail on the head, man. The Bucs, you look at the teams that they've come away with tough losses against. The San Francisco 49ers, I mean, in week number 1, before we really knew who the Niners were going to be this season, who very well could rank amongst, if not the top team in the NFL, they're the only team that's still undefeated at this point. So what they've done, the Bucs really had a chance in that game. Like they could have easily won game 1 against the team right now that's 8-0 on the season. So just even back in game 1, they collapsed against the New York Giants, and Daniel Jones having a 4-touchdown total performance against this very exact defense in his NFL debut. I mean, I could sit here and go through the rest of the ones in my hand. I mean, the 6-turnover performance against Carolina in London. I mean, that was still even a competitive game before he looked like he was shaving points and making an active effort to turn the football over to the opposing team. Going full Paul Crew from the longest yard. But, point is that the Buccaneers are a better football team than their 2-6 record at this point. Right. It's tough to watch, but I mean, this week they ran into an MVP candidate,
absolutely,
Russell Wilson. They just got at Seattle, which is always a tough place to go and win.
Yep. And that'll bring me up to my last game ball for the week. Another guy that we're definitely going to get into, at least for me, when we talk about our MVP watch. And I'm saying it right now, Tater. He is the new face of the franchise down there in Carolina.
Oh boy,
it's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, listen. Granted, Tennessee, that score. If you see that score, you would say that was a close game. That 30-20 score does not take away what that game actually was. Carolina dominated Tennessee from the outset.
Yep. And
Christian McCaffrey was a big part of that, as usual, as he has been so far this season. 166 total yards from scrimmage, 146 on the ground, so only 20 through the air. But 3 total scores, 1 catching as well, 2 on the ground. I mean, I have to say it, especially with Cam Newton now going on IR. He'll be done for the season. I'm pretty sure you probably feel this way as well. He's probably played his last game for Carolina.
It sure feels that way.
Yeah. And Christian McCaffrey is the new face of the franchise and maybe of the NFL at this point, along with Lamar Jackson for that matter. I mean, the kid can do it all out from the backfield. He can run it, obviously. He can catch it. He can block it. Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things. When we talk about Russell Wilson doing Russell Wilson things,
right.
Christian McCaffrey is leading the Carolina Panthers, who are firmly right now in the spot for playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFC, they're definitely going to be pushing for a wild card spot. They're not going to catch the Saints in the but they are going to push for a wild card spot. And Christian McCaffrey, I mean, I still think Saquon Barkley is the most naturally gifted running back in the NFL. I'd still, if I were to choose one running back to put on my team, it would still be Saquon Barkley over Christian McCaffrey. But I have a hard time defending that stance.
Right.
He's been so damn good. There's nothing that this man can't do.
No.
I mean, he's not built like a workhorse back, but I'll be damned if he doesn't break tackles in the trenches. I mean, and make work running the football. He can run it right at you. He can run it he can gash you on the edge. And then he's arguably the best route runner in the NFL as a running back. I mean, there's nothing the man can't do, and he's definitely, I think, one of the best weapons in the NFL. I mean, I think he is the best weapon in the NFL. Non-quarterback, he's the best non-quarterback in a landslide, in my opinion. I mean, maybe you can make a case for a couple defensive players, but offensively, he creates so many issues, mismatches, that it makes the Carolina Panthers, despite not having Cam Newton, still very potent on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, and Kyle Allen is, I hate the term game manager, right? But Kyle Allen is doing a lot of those game managing things. He's making throws. There's no doubt about it.
Which is why it's very tough to believe. It's very tough to feel like it's the right decision to go ahead and move on from Cam Newton, because it's not like I've seen Kyle Allen come in and start torching defenses left and right. I feel like he's doing a very good job managing football games, and certainly he's played well. I mean, absolutely has played very well. But I still want a healthy Cam Newton over Kyle Allen any day of the week. Am I wrong to say that?
Well, you're definitely not wrong about that, Derek, but that therein lies the problem.
He has to be healthy.
Will Cam Newton be healthy again? Yeah. And here in Chicago, I think this kind of segues into a conversation that needs to be had as well. People are calling for, a trade of Cam Newton to come to Chicago. And listen, if he's healthy, I think it's something the Bears can entertain. But I've never fully even trusted Cam Newton, even when he was healthy. I think he was a bit of a front runner in his career. I think when there is any type of, adversity that goes on either on the field or in his life, I think you see that come out in his play and in his attitude. I don't think he's the best leader of men, but the kid is certainly uber talented. Again, when healthy. But they always say the best ability is availability. And you just don't know if Cam Newton will ever be 100% healthy, especially when it comes to something as important as his feet.
I mean, if we're talking about best mobile quarterbacks of all time in NFL history, Cam certainly, at least dual threat quarterbacks. Cam's name has to be brought up in that conversation. I'm not saying he's the best, because once upon a time, Steve Young was actually a very athletic quarterback over there in San Francisco. And then, of course, we have Michael Vick and among others. And now, of course, we're seeing a new wave of young mobile quarterbacks that are certainly doing big things on a very high level. But, Cam, in his own right, he was always kind of a different type of beast in his own mind, because, he was one of the best goal line backs in the NFL playing quarterback. Tell me how many times in 2015 when he won NFL MVP that man punched it in from 1 yard out. 35 passing touchdowns to go with 10 rushing. But I think that his best days as a physical specimen are likely in the rear view mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to be each and every year that comes and goes. His physical abilities to be able to beat people with his athleticism is going to diminish.
Right.
This is where we've seen the difference between him and someone like Russell Wilson, right? Who's also one of the best dual threat quarterbacks we've ever seen, because Russ can flat out run when he needs to.
Absolutely.
But you've seen him evolve as a passer every single season. And now we're seeing him start to reach the apex of quarterback play at the NFL, to the point where this is a great transition into the most valuable player talk. Mm-hmm. And basically we can go ahead and hand out our midseason NFL MVP. And I'm going to jump in and say we may agree, because it goes to Russell Wilson for me easily. He leads the league in touchdown passes with 22. He's third in passing yards. And he's done all of this with only throwing one interception the entire season. And keep in mind, Tyler Lockett is his number one. I'm not talking smack about Tyler Lockett.
I know what you mean.
He can ball. And he's certainly a great weapon. He's kind of like a poor man's Tyreek Hill when it comes to his explosiveness. But he's a gifted route runner. You can move him all over the formation. He's having a great season, but no one is going to say that Tyler Lockett is a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL.
No, not at all. And it's amazing what he's able to do with not the best complementary parts, right? At least overall. Again, he's got great players, but if you took Tom Brady and you gave him this offense, how different would it look, right? And when again, not to keep on Cam Newton. I know we got to move on from that, but the difference between Russell Wilson and Cam Newton is that both are very gifted athletically, but what you saw from Russell Wilson, especially early in his career, was his ability to slide and not take the hit.
Right.
And again, I think we applauded Cam Newton for that because, like you mentioned, he was such a gifted physical specimen. I mean, 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds. I mean, nobody had really ever seen anything like that before from the quarterback position, being that athletic, being that mobile when you're talking about Cam Newton. But taking all of those hits, they've taken its toll on him. But let's move on from that. Russell Wilson is doing it all. And we're going to agree with the MVP award. But, man, did I struggle with this after seeing the performance from Lamar Jackson against the New England Patriots. I want to see a little more from Lamar Jackson. Not to say that he really has anything to prove, right? But I think they've got sort of an ugly loss to the Cleveland Browns, right? So if you look back at that, you kind of wonder what happened in a game like that. And I'm not sure if they were on the road or at home in that game, but that's a game that's sort of an ugly loss. And the Seattle Seahawks have an ugly loss as well, at least in my opinion, at home to the Saints, where they just didn't play well. But it's Russell Wilson for me, like you said, 22 through the air, only one pick, and he's doing it in spite of, again, not a very good Seattle Seahawks defense. When have we said that in the last 3, 4, 5 years? And
far cry from the Legion of Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all Russell Wilson here. We're gonna agree with that. But man, I wanted to pick Lamar Jackson so bad.
Yeah, Lamar was tough to overlook.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, if he keeps on his pace, he's just going to obliterate the single season rushing record for a quarterback. And of course, Uncle Pete always joining us is Uncle Pete. He wanted us to go ahead and bring up the Bucs quarterback, Doug Williams, first black quarterback in the NFL, I believe, to win a Super Bowl as a starting quarterback. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, for the Washington Redskins. And not only that, but he got a perennial loser in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1979 all the way to the NFC Championship game. They fell a little short against the Rams. I mean, Doug Williams, did his thing. But, when it comes to our power rankings, now this is where it comes a little bit difficult because we saw Russell Wilson just torch the Bucs. We saw Lamar Jackson dice up a defense that looked pretty much like you couldn't score on him through the first month or two of the season, and yet Lamar goes ahead and drops 37 on him.
Right.
Well, hold on, 30, because one of them was a defensive touchdown by Marlon. Right. I got to correct myself. But power rankings.
Yeah.
What a rip. Let's go.
Okay, so all these teams that we talked about so far in the Go Route this week, we may disagree on placement here a little bit. It's a jumbled up top 5 for me. And again, the situation is always fluid. Week to week, these things can change. But coming in at number 5, I've got the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
37-20 win. They were creeping up my power rankings the last few weeks here, Tater, but they make it in the top 5 this week. Again, they're at home against the Patriots. I fully expected them to win that game. They did just that. They did it in pretty much the fashion that I thought they would do it in, too, with a physical run game, not so much flash through the air, but again, Lamar Jackson doing everything that's necessary for them to win. They're complete right now. They were able to shut down that Patriots run game. I'll get into that in a few minutes when I talk about the Patriots. A really, really nice effort and showing on Sunday Night Football by the Baltimore Ravens. They come in at number 5 for me. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks, and a team that we talked about. We just got done talking about Russell Wilson. He's doing it all. He can beat you anyway. If he's got to scramble out the pocket for 15 yards and slide to get a first down, he's going to do it. If he can drop it in the bucket down the sidelines for a game-winning overtime touchdown, he's going to do that as well. Whatever you need from Russell Wilson, He's going to do it. He's going to beat you. He gives opposing coaches nightmares, Tater. And the Seahawks check in at number 4 for me. Coming in at number 3, they're dropping down a spot. I've got the New England Patriots. Again, I fully expected them to lose that game on the road, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes you need a loss like that to see where you were at. And what you saw is that the Patriots, especially this year so far in the first half, is something I'm surprised of, is that they haven't found that consistent run game. James White was your leading rusher on Sunday night. 9 rushes, I think, for like 38 yards. Listen, Sonny Michel's a beast. He proved that in the second half of last year and on that playoff run on the way to a Super Bowl for the Patriots. They haven't gotten him on track yet. I know the Patriots have dealt with offensive line issues for most of the season. They've had some replacements be in there, so I know that has affected it a little bit. But again, a bit surprising that they haven't shored up the run game. I fully expect Bill Belichick and that Patriots coaching staff to shore it up in the second half. But again, Patriots coming in at number 3. I've got them dropping down a spot.
Okay. Coming
in at number 2 on a bye week, I've still got them at number 2, Tater. It's the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
They are in prime position for the number 2 seed unless something happens with the Niners. They could possibly overtake the number 1 seed. But you know how I feel about the Saints. I think they're probably going to be your number 1 team. We'll see. Of course, we're going to find out in a few minutes here.
Of course, yeah.
But the Saints are also another complete team, very underrated defense. They've got their emotional heart and soul back in Drew Brees, and they've got to get Alvin Kamara fully healthy. But once he's fully healthy, look out for the rest of the NFC. At number 1, I've got the San Francisco 49ers.
All right.
They're undefeated, and until something happens there, I've got to keep them at the number 1 spot. They're clicking on all cylinders. Man, that pass rush is scary. If I'm an opposing quarterback, I do not want to see that front 7. I don't want to have to figure that out. If I'm an opposing quarterback, I'll tell you what. And of course, with the emergence of their running game, and can we also say that Greg Kittle is the best tight end in the league at this point?
George
Greg, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. George Kittle. I have no idea why I said Greg.
Hey, diddle, it's a Kittle up the middle. Yeah.
But you get my team, Taylor. At this point, probably the best tight end in the league. He's going to catch and he's going to run over you. And he's a load to bring down. I love what Kyle Shanahan is doing to get him all over the field, put him in different spots to succeed. I've got the San Francisco 49ers, my number 1 team for my power rankings from week 9.
Okay. So we got pretty much the same collection of 5 teams. I mean, great minds think alike, but mine's a little bit different order. At 5, I'm actually going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. Okay. And, I mean, Russell Wilson had a real tough time dropping the Packers out of my top 5, even though I'm not going to say they got exposed, but they got punched in the mouth by a nasty pass rush and Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa over there in Los Angeles this week. I mean, they looked inept. They didn't score a point in the first half, the entire first half, and they had Devontae Adams back.
Yeah. And listen, and I don't want to cut you off, but that was actually one of my takeaways from the week. Let's just briefly talk about these Chargers. Listen, I know it's a tough task. You've got the Chiefs atop the AFC West, but the Chargers have gotten themselves back into a possible wild card picture, and they're doing it behind a tough defense. I love what they're doing down there in LA. Anthony Lynn has got those boys with their ears pinned back and rearing to go the last couple of weeks. I know the Bears didn't do them any favors the week before, but man, at home, they made life hell for Aaron Rodgers in that pocket. He was not comfortable the entire afternoon. And yeah, I've got to give it up to the Chargers because I think we all thought they were dead in the water. But after a couple of wins behind that defense, they're certainly right back in the playoff picture in the AFC West.
I mean, and think about also when you take into consideration some of the tough luck losses that Chargers have had this year. I mean, I remember I was at the game with the Detroit Lions at Ford Field when they had 2 touchdowns on consecutive drive or on the same drive, including fumbling at the 1-yard line that could have put them up by multiple scores. Instead, they turned the ball over and Matthew Stafford ended up bringing back the Detroit Lions to win that football game, but also against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they had basically 2 touchdowns reversed and then fumbled again on the 1-yard line. So a couple tough luck losses, but make no mistake, if the Chargers can figure it out, they are a very dangerous, very talented football team over there in the AFC. But I do have the Seahawks at 5.
Yep.
Look, this team just added Josh Gordon too.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm gonna talk about the New England Patriots in a second, but Josh Gordon can still play football.
Yeah.
And I think that his match with Tom Brady was actually one that was piss poor because Gordon can still get vertical. I'm not saying he can fly like he used to back in 2012 when he broke out, but he can still move. Don't make any mistake about it. He is strong as all hell. And we saw another guy, DK Metcalf, tear up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a similar skill set. Now you got 2 of those guys to complement Tyler Lockett, and just you're giving the leading touchdown thrower through the first 8 weeks of the season, Josh Gordon. So the Seahawks are dangerous.
Scary. Can be scary good. And it just made me wonder what happened with the Patriots there. And you say it wasn't a good matchup with Tom Brady. Do you think it was just because that Brady really can't throw the ball deep anymore? I mean, do you have any thoughts of maybe why that matchup didn't work out? Because like you said, Josh Gordon is still a beast, man. I know he was dealing with a little bit of injuries, and I know they've got the Patriot way over there in New England, but I mean, what do you think happened with that relationship there?
Well, I do think that Brady is inconsistent when it comes to pushing the football down the field nowadays. I'm not saying he can't throw it deep.
Right.
I'm not going to go that far, but I am going to go ahead and say that he is much more of a game manager at this point in his given career. That, I mean, if he's able to pinpoint a matchup that you can't handle, he will go back to that well time and time again and will do what he has to do to at least generate points. But as far as those days of him being able to launch the ball deep and take advantage of a guy like a Randy Moss, like when we saw him catch 23 touchdown passes in one season, I think those days are gone for Tom Brady. And unfortunately, Josh Gordon is way more of a vertical threat at this point. Way more of a vertical threat that Brady can't really maximize his abilities. But make no mistake, I think they downgraded from getting Mohamed Sanu and Josh Gordon. I think Josh Gordon's the better player. No disrespect to Mo Sanu. Sanu can play, but Gordon's the better player to me.
Yeah.
So, but I'm looking at number 4, and I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson presents issues for any team in the NFL. And you talk about a guy that is able to produce through the air with limited weapons. Who's his best wide receiver?
It's Willie Snead.
Willie Snead, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Miles Boykin. No, again, these guys aren't scrubs. They're professional players, especially Hollywood Brown. I do think that he's going to do some very nice things in the NFL in years to come. And I mean, Mark Andrews is a nice tight end too. But if you're asking me whose receiver group I'd rather have Russell Wilson's in Seattle. Yet Lamar Jackson has been a problem and been producing all season long. And we continue to see him progress as a passer. And now that you're starting to see a passing game to go along with that dynamic ability to just create with his legs, the Ravens are a real problem. And by the way, I also like what they're doing on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
By the way, Marlon Humphrey is becoming a very, very, very good corner in this league. So the Ravens I have at 4. The Patriots drop actually stay the same at 3. I just don't want – I mean, I could have put the Ravens in front of them, but I want to take the whole body of work into account because they did win their first 8 games of the season in very dominant fashion, mind you. So I don't want to overreact to one loss on the road where the Ravens just basically punched them in the mouth immediately from the jump in that game. And I actually still thought Brady played pretty well.
Yeah.
Really what flipped the game was Julian Edelman's fumble and scoop and score from Marlon Humphrey. Yep. That was really what broke it wide open. So I still got the Patriots at 3, but I have a raised eyebrow now on them because this was really the first legitimate test this defense had, and they failed.
Yeah.
So otherwise, they've been beaten up on teams like the Redskins, the Jets, the Dolphins. I mean, they played the Bills, who generated a grand total of 10 points against them. They haven't played any tough offenses. They get one test and they get 30 dropped on them. So I'm a little hesitant. And you mentioned Sony Michel too. I want to touch on him real quick.
Yep.
they have had issues along that offensive line. I mean, last year, if you include the playoffs, Sony Michel had 3 games where he ran for over 100 yards. So far in 2019, Goose egg, 0.
Yep.
And he's been the leading ball carrier for this unit. So it's not like he hasn't had ample opportunities. It's just that they're not as good up front as they have been, especially last year, but even in years past. They're not able to have that power running game. And if they start playing teams that are capable of scoring points against this defense, I'm interested with no more Gronkowski. You let go of Josh Gordon. We're going to find out real quick how good the Patriots really are, but they're gonna make the playoffs because they started off 8-0. I still have the 49ers at 2, and I gotta bite my tongue or at least smack myself a little bit because Jimmy Garoppolo tossed 4 touchdown passes to go along with 317 yards. A damn good football game from your boy Jimmy G against the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. I have not forgotten about it, Jimmy G, and I've been giving you shit the entire year. So I'm going to call myself out. You play a damn good football game, I got to eat some crow. Jimmy Garoppolo doing his thing, and then that means I got the Saints at number 1. I know that they were on a bye week, and I know they didn't play anybody, but my eyes tell me that's the best team in the NFL, so I'm not going to knock them for having a week off.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, again, you touched on it. We've got the same teams, just in a bit of a different order. I'm really interested to see what the Saints are going to do in this second half of the season. I know you got them at number 1. I know you love them, but it's going to be so interesting again because I don't think the Panthers are going to catch them. But I think they've got one more game against each other. That could be interesting as far as maybe some seeding goes in the NFC. But certainly love what the New Orleans Saints are doing. And, of course, they're coming off of a bye at the right time to make a second-half push to a possible number 1 seed in the NFC. Going to be really fun second half.
Yeah, Kamara was a little bit banged up. He gets an extra week of rest. And, of course, even if Kamara can't go, I mean, Latavius Murray's dropped 2 consecutive 100-yard rushing performances, one against the Chicago Bears defense. So, I mean, they're doing it against everybody. They're beating up on everybody, are the New Orleans Saints. But some Week 10 matchups. And, man, we've got ourselves a treat on national television for the 2 primetime games, one on Monday Night Football, the other one on Sunday Night Football. We'll start with the Monday night matchup, and that's going to be the Seattle Seahawks traveling to San Francisco to take on the undefeated San Francisco 49ers. I mean, do you have a prediction for this game? Because these are 2 of the best teams in the NFC. Hell, they're both in our top 5 power rankings as the I mean, this could be a matchup that we see in the playoffs. So what do you expect from this game?
I expect points. I expect points. I expect a game that's going to be up and down. Listen, if you're a Seattle fan, again, we talked about it earlier in the go route, you got to be concerned about that defense right now on the road going to San Francisco. George Kittle is a beast. Tevin Coleman is breaking out in this offense. Kyle Shanahan, whatever he dials up is money right now. And, of course, like you said, Jimmy G is tossing touchdowns at a great rate. They can do it all on the offensive side. And flip side of that defense is going to make life tough for Russell Wilson. What is he going to be able to do to make to extend plays with his feet and make sure that he can make throws on time? Because not only do they have a hellacious pass rush, but that secondary is really good as well. Having said all of that, though, points. I expect points to be scored in this game. I'm looking at about a 37-35 type of score here, Tater. What about you?
I think it's going to go the opposite way.
Really?
Well, the reason being is that the 49ers have proven that they don't have to put up a ton of points to win football games.
Okay.
And Seattle, even though Russell Wilson's playing, I mean, he's our MVP through the first, through the halfway point of the season, I'm still going to go with the fact that this 49ers defense has been very good all season long, and they've played against much tougher competition than the Patriots have. So, I mean, they're like 1 and 2 in almost every category. So for me, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, and I think it's going to be Russell Wilson. That's the difference. The difference between generally the tiebreaker between 2 evenly matched teams is a great player being great. And this is the type of game where you cement an MVP type of campaign, where you go on the road against a quality football team and you go and get a W. And I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. If I'm going to have to pick a score, I'm going to say it's 20-17.
Okay.
17 Seahawks.
Yeah, I've actually got Seattle in this game as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be some point score. But again, who am I to say? Every prediction that I pretty much had this year has gone the complete.
Well, don't say that. You're not mush, pal. You're not mush. So, but I do want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings in the other primetime game on Sunday Night Football, Minnesota versus Dallas. And Dallas Cowboys, I mean, by the way, that cat getting on the field on Monday Night Football, were you watching that live?
No, I wasn't watching it live, actually. But, man, when I did see it, I got the creeps even not seeing it live. I mean, listen, we as a Chicago sports fan, as a Cubs fan, we've got historical histrionics with black cats here in Chicago Cubs land. So when I did see it, I had some flashbacks of that, even though I wasn't alive when that black cat ran out on Wrigley Field way back in the 60s. But it just set the club off on a death path. But I digress. Back to football. Seeing a black cat on the field, man, I mean, it's got to creep you out just a little bit.
The place I was watching it at, it was like a local sports bar around here. If they had a Hooters, because this is brought to you by the original Hooters, I would definitely be at Hooters, but we don't have a Hooters here in Cadillac, Michigan. But the point is, I actually started doing play-by-play as the cat was, at midfield. I was like, "And look at him go," and
rumbling, stumbling.
You can't take it. You can't take the announcer out of me. Unfortunately, it happens. But I mean, I thought that was some wild stuff. I mean, of course, the Giants had a 9-3 lead at that point, and then of course the Cowboys just came roaring back and ended up taking the game. So of course, the internet is a fantastic place at times. I did read a couple, Twitter mentions about it, and one said, "Oh, Sam Darnold lost his cat." Because he's been playing like hell.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, that was some wild stuff. But I mean, as far as Minnesota and Dallas, so I mean, we got two very good teams. I mean, both of them right now, if the season were to end today, both would be in the playoffs and postseason. I mean, but is there a team that you like in this game? Because both teams have laid some eggs.
Yeah.
Maybe scratch your head sometimes, but who do you like?
Well, as a sort of knee-jerk reaction, I think I have to like Dallas here. It was also one of my takeaways. It was one of my secondary takeaways from the past week. But has Dallas righted their ship somewhat? All three big names are playing well right now. Of course, Dak Prescott tossing 3 touchdowns. We know what Ezekiel Elliott brings to the table. Another big game last week, and Amari Cooper had a big game as well. It's all about the triplets down there in Dallas. They're trying to replicate what had them so successful in the mid '90s, right? With Troy and Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith, right? So have they found their groove again after a couple of losses in a row? I think it's 3 wins in a row now. I think 3 or 4 for Dallas. Have they sort of turn things around as they lead the NFC East at this point in time? For Minnesota, coming off a tough loss, right? In Kansas City, a game that I'm sure they felt that they probably should have won. Of course, a key Kirk Cousins, incompletion or a drive that wasn't to fruition was the key difference there out in Kansas City. How will they respond in Dallas, right? We've seen Dallas lay eggs at home in Jerryland. We've seen that before.
Right.
So I would expect, again, I would think some points are going to be scored in this game as well. But of course, knowing me, it could be a 17-12 or a 17-13 type of game. But I think if I had to pick a team, I would probably go with Dallas. I think they've got more momentum on their side now. I think they're starting to figure things out a little bit more. Looks like Dak Prescott is trying to creep back up into those MVP discussions that he was in the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, especially if Adam Thielen is on the shelf for the Minnesota,
right,
which I think he aggravated that hamstring injury that he had. I think he only played like the first series or 2 before he ended up exiting that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So for me, if they don't have Adam Thielen on the road and the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, I don't know if I expect them to dissect the Vikings defense, who they have a solid unit in their own right. But the way that the Cowboys are playing, I do think that they have a nice bit of momentum. Dak Prescott's been pretty good all damn year, with the exception of maybe a couple games in that 3-game losing streak that they had after winning the first 3 games. But like you said, the triplets are playing very well. Dak, Zeke, Coop, I mean, they're all doing their thing. I do expect the Dallas Cowboys to handle business. And, of course, speaking of handling business, that is going to end business. We're going to be closing up shot here on the Go Route, brought to you by the Original Hooters. Again, if this is your first time joining us, whether it be on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button or the like button as well.
Or we will come find you.
What's that?
I said, or we will come find you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't make me hunt. I've got too many things. I got too many beers to down. I mean, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. I want to get comfy and spend the rest of the night on my couch. Don't make me hunt you down. But of course, thank you for joining us today. Whether it be also, if you're joining us via podcast, whether you digest it via iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or even on iHeartRadio, feel free to go ahead and drop us a review. We really appreciate any and all the support. And I've got my sign-off line. I can create another one for you, but do you got anything, Jay?
I still don't have anything this week, Tater. I'm practicing my game in the mirror. You know, I'm trying to get my swag right. But you know what? Nothing is coming to mind, man. Definitely shoot me some notes if you got something too, man. I'm struggling with this. I'm waking up with night sweats, for crying out loud, trying to get my sign-off right.
I'll tell you what, that's actually a great thing. If you tuned in via Facebook or YouTube, drop it in the comments. A Jay sign-off line. His name is Jay Pfeiffer. I'm Derek Tate. And until next time, later, says the Tater.